let's get into the match review from yesterday. Obviously, we did lose 2-0 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. 3 back-to-back defeats in the Premier League. 2 back-to-back defeats at home, with Man City coming up this weekend as well. So when you're looking at the top 4 hopes, they do look a bit bleak right now. But look, there is a long way to go. But at the moment, as it stands right now, it looks very bleak in terms of the top 4 race.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not good. It's not looking good. Look, I'm sure there'll be many more twists and turns. And the fact of the matter is, we are still 5 points off 4th with 3 games in hand. That's just fact. That's not opinion. That's not what I think is the case. That's the case. We are 5 points behind with 3 games in hand. That's what the table looks like right now. So as long as the gap is that small, then you can never rule it out. But if we're losing 2 home games in a row to this kind of opposition, it's going to make it nearly impossible.
Yeah. Definitely agree with that, and especially with Man City coming up this weekend. And not only that, but there's a massive game in the top 4 race this weekend when Arsenal face Wolves again. So, look, we've got a lot of making up to do, even if we want to put ourselves in the conversation for 4th, because you can't lose these 2 home games and be within a fighting chance. You just can't, especially with so many teams going for it. But in terms of the game yesterday, the way the game started, it felt like it was just a hangover from that Southampton game. The defence was nowhere near quick enough to react. Mistakes happening all over the midfield and all over the defence. In terms of the first goal, you got to look at Hugo Lloris. I mean, he parries it, what was it, 2 times? In the build up to that goal.
Twice. Really poor parries, to be fair, from Lloris. I have to say, there's we'll start with Lloris's portion of the blame, because I think Neves has a pot shot, not that good of a shot. Like, it's pretty easy for Lloris to deal with. Like, I'm not saying he has to catch it, but he can definitely palm that away. He definitely doesn't have to palm that straight into the danger zone. It was a low shot which had a decent amount of power, but wasn't so much where he had to quickly react. He had time to react to that and know what he's doing, and he parried it straight forward. No reason to do that. Dendonker's effort then, I think Dendonker mishits it. Like, it's not even a very good effort. And that one Lloris could have caught.
It's a weak shot.
It was a weak shot, and he could definitely caught that, Lloris. That was a really bad palm. I think he tries to punch it outside the penalty area. He doesn't get enough power on it. And then it falls to Jimenez, and he has time to chest it and volley it into the back of the net. And we're 1-0 down after 6 minutes.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you can blame Lloris, which, fair enough, 2 poor parries. But if you look at a picture of when Lloris is parrying the shots, like, there's like, everyone is on the edge of the area just standing and watching.
Every single defender doesn't come away from criticism for these goals, because everyone was just way too slow to react. I mean, how many times are we going to talk about this defence being way too slow to react? Ball watching every single time. What is going on? I don't understand. Like, these players, Davinson Sanchez, even Christian Romero was to blame for the goals yesterday. I mean, everyone just way too slow to react, and it's a constant theme for a while now. It really has been, apart from a few moments where the squad has been galvanised, like when Conte first came in. They've all reverted back to type, haven't they? Every single one.
That's what it seems at the moment. Past 2 games especially, they've definitely been shocking. They've not been up to scratch at all. It's been actually pretty horrendous, I must say, from a defensive point of view. And how they allow Wolves to have 2 shots inside our penalty area without even getting near them. Why people are just standing. I think as well, Bentancur, as much as I thought he had a decent game for the first goal, he's standing and watching. He's standing and watching, and he only when it falls to Jimenez does he think, oh shit, I should get involved now. And by then it's too late. Like, why are players not being alert, not being ready to pounce if the keeper saves it? It's like they're already ready for the ball to go in. It's like they're not thinking, you know, if this gets saved or hits the post or something, I have to be first to that ball. They're like, watching is like, is he going to save it? Is he not? And then once he saves it, then it's like, okay, let's go. It's like, no, you've got to be ready. You've got to be on your toes. You've got to be ready to react first. And that's exactly what happened on the second goal as well. I mean, again, build-up was awful. Lloris, what a terrible back pass to Davis. Davis, what a terrible clearance. Them 2 are at fault as well for how they got in on goal. But then a couple of deflections happened in the box. But Sanchez and Bentancur, I know the ball's deflected off them, but like, they're just kind of waiting for it to go in. when the ball goes off them. And then once the ball hits the post, then they're reacting, okay, let's jump into action. But then it's too late. Then Dunker's already on his bike and he's ahead of them. Like, why are these players just standing and just watching the ball?
And at that very moment, the game's over, pretty much.
Yeah.
20 minutes in, 2-0 down at home, the game's over.
And even, I'm not saying, like, Wolves are the second coming of... prime Italy or something with their defense.
Tillman was prime Maldini.
Like, what I'm saying is, Man City could give Wolves a 2-0 head start, and they could struggle to come back in that game. So how can we expect to give them a 2-0 head start and think that we're going to easily come back into the game? That's not just like damaging to give them a 2-0 head start. That's fatal. That's a fatal error that we've done in that game. And and as you saw in the because we did change it up. We did get back in the game in terms of control, because I thought for the first 20 minutes there was even a stat you put at the game, you can see it, but they're 2-0 up. And I think they scored in the 20th minute or something. I think when did we made the change in the 26th or 27th minute? Yeah. And from 20 minutes to 27 minutes, Wolves had 78% possession.
Wow.
78. So they're 2-0 up, and they have 78% possession, right? And so
I looked at it at the end of the half, the possession stats. I think it was 68% at the end of the first half.
Yeah, so especially for those first 25 minutes, they were well in control of what was going on. They were not just dominating the scoreline, they were dominating the ball. They were completely on top of us. Neves, I thought, was running things. Bruno Lager said after the game that he knows that Tottenham like to play two in the middle, so he put three in there to outnumber them and make sure they dominate possession. And we couldn't get near Ruben Neves in the first 25 minutes. We completely lost.
Even tried to get near him.
Yeah, we had no control. We had no control. Luke Kundle, the 19-year-old kid, was running rings around us. I think in the middle, Dendoncker was playing really well, and then obviously because they play a back three, when we went forward in the first 25 minutes, we had zero options. We were way too easy to defend against. Once we did change it, we brought on Kulu. We took off Sessegnon after 28 minutes, and he was a bit unlucky because I didn't think he was the worst player on the pitch, but I think maybe he thought, if I'm going to a back four, I trust Davis more at left back than Sessegnon.
Yesterday.
Yeah, I have to feel for him because it wasn't his fault, but Conte had a decision to make. Who am I taking off? And he thought best to take off Sessegnon instead of Davis or Doherty, which I feel bad for him, but that's the decision he made. You could argue it might have been mistakes. I didn't like Davis at left back either, to be honest. I didn't think he played too well. We wasn't getting forward at all when we needed him on the overlap, and he had a bit of a lack of quality. But look, he did it. And then, but what I'm saying is, once we did that, Wolves was getting a lot less possession. Neves was getting a lot less joy than he was in the first 25 minutes. And all of a sudden we were getting control of the game. We were finally getting the ball. We're finally able to get our attacking players a bit more involved. I think even immediately, Son was getting a lot more involved on the left-hand side. He was whipping balls into the box. He was getting involved, but Wolves were a very good defensive side. That's just reality.
Yeah.
And
as soon as we did go 2-0 down, it was game over because we were never going to get back into that game with the way the Wolves' defence are and have been all season. Second best defence in the whole Premier League. So I think we did create some chances, but we never tested the keeper anywhere near enough.
No, the only save I really remember him making was from Romero from a corner. I don't remember any other serious save he made. A lot of the shots were tame, straight at him. I remember Son had a one-on-one, didn't he? And that was a really weak effort from him. Was that 0-0? No, that was a 1-0, wasn't it?
I can't remember what the score is, but I remember what moment you're talking about. I think it might have been at 2-0. I can't remember. Bentancur
plays it through to him. Yeah, that was actually a nice bit of play. Like very tame efforts. And if you don't take full advantage when you're getting clear openings and that, you're going to make it very, very difficult for yourself. And we had to rely on the rest of it on just half chances and snapshots and things like that. And also, I thought Kulu a few times was getting in really good areas in the central position, playing some really nice through balls. But because they're playing three at the back, it makes it 10 times harder to get a through ball through to an attacker than it would be with two at the back. So a lot of the time he was playing some really nice passes, but he's trying to get it in between three defenders defenders, and it's very, very difficult to do that. And then also Sarr was being like a sweeper keeper, so you have to get that timing and weight of pass completely perfect to get a player in on goal, and he nearly did it a few times. And if we're playing a lesser opposition, I think Kulu would have got a bit more joy, but because we're playing such a good defensive side like Wolves, it was very difficult for him to pull it off, and unfortunately we weren't able to do so. I thought Son and Kane were trying their hardest. I thought Son especially, I thought he was trying so hard. He never stopped, even until the last, in stoppage time, you know, he's running beyond the defender, trying to make things happen. But Wolves were too strong at the back. That's just reality. They were too strong, and we didn't have enough quality from wide areas again, which we know that. We know that from fullbacks and stuff, there's no quality there, so we're all very concentrated in getting things done in the centre, but they're clogging up the centre areas of free defensive mids and free defenders.
And lack of quality in the centre as well, because Harry Winks rearing his old ugly head again in terms of performances. And again, he's another one that's completely reverted back to type since the transfer window shut. Everyone was singing his praises when Conte came in. He thought his Tottenham career was over before Conte came in, and he was given a new lease of life. And he's just putting in the old Winks performances again. First half yesterday, he was dreadful. Every time he got on the ball, our moves pretty much broke down, lost the ball pretty much every time. Wasn't being aggressive enough in the middle of the park. Seemed quite a way off the pace. But to his credit, I did think he grew into the game in the second half. He did have one pop shot, didn't he?
But
apart from that, it was another poor display from Harry Winks in the middle of the park.
Yeah, I thought he was really poor actually, and maybe he was a bit part of the reason why. Maybe it was tactical, but also for him, because in the first 25 minutes he couldn't get near any Wolves midfielder, and I know they had 3 there, so it's not easy, and it makes things a lot harder. But he couldn't get anywhere near them. He was just running around like a headless chicken. I thought his passing was atrocious. I could barely find a Tottenham man.
Yeah.
And I was really disappointed with his first half display. Second half, yeah, I agree. He got a bit into it. But again, as I say, when judging these games, like in terms of Spurs improved in the second half and we created more chances and stuff and we had a bit more control, which was all true. But when Wolves are 2-0 up, it's like, it's hard to judge whether that's because of Tottenham improving or Wolves just sitting back on their lead and saying.
I think it's more to the latter.
You know what I mean? It's hard. It's hard to judge that. It's easy. It's easy to have a bit more control when the opposition has 2-0 lead, isn't it? And that's disappointing. Although what I would say is I've seen Tottenham go 2-0 down and then be dominated for the rest of the game as well. So it's not necessarily always the case, but.
Yeah, but Wolves are that kind of team where you know they'll go ahead and then they'll just completely defend that lead. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
A best defense, second best defense in the league. So you expect that from Wolves. You really do. A couple of other players, Davinson Sanchez. I mean, he just looked like Bambi on ice once again. I mean, every time he seemed to have the ball, he seemed to shit himself. Every single time. He looked so nervous on the ball. It was actually terrifying watching him. It really was.
There was that one moment in the second half where, I think it was second half, where Romero plays a square pass to him, Tottenham looking to progress the ball. And he just, under no pressure, just takes a heavy touch, overruns the ball, and then just gives it away to a Wolves attacker and they're in on goal. And I think that was the moment when Jimenez was in on goal. And we got very lucky we didn't give away a penalty because Davis makes a challenge and doesn't get the ball whatsoever. And we're lucky that Jimenez stayed on his feet and then and Lloris made a save. And that just encapsulated Sanchez's performance yesterday.
Yeah, it's really hard to take. I mean, these players, Sanchez, Davis and Winks, all, I keep saying it, but it's just so depressing, all reverting back to type after such big praise we were giving them. It's really annoying. But in terms of Antonio Conte, right, these two managers now, in these last 2 defeats, Hasenhüttl and Lager yesterday, both saying, they knew what Tottenham were going to do, so they counteract it. Hasenhüttl was saying that every time we score, we sit back, so he knew what to do. Lager saying yesterday that he knew we were going to play 2 in midfield, so he put 3 in there to dominate. So does Conte need to look at the team and take some of the blame as well? Because I was actually thinking about it yesterday and thinking that Conte couldn't really have done much yesterday. But with these 2 managers coming out and saying these things, does Conte need to take some of the blame?
Of course, the manager always has to take some of the blame, and considering that when we did change it up, we looked a lot better in possession. That shows that maybe there is a format there, and in this specific game anyway, maybe a different approach would have been better, and maybe we're becoming a bit too predictable, the 3-4-3, and easy to dominate in those areas. And you know, we know 3-5-2, we've looked a bit better since Conte's come in specific games. So he's got to think, especially a team like Wolves, you've got to play with 3 centre mids. But unfortunately, he's also hamstrung with the squad he has. That's just reality. Like, he only has 4 centre mids, kind of. So, like, if you're playing 3 every game, you're leaving yourself very, very short. And we know Skip's injured as well. Højbjerg, I think, needed resting. So what does he do? He played the 3-4-3. He has got to think about whether this formation's the best right now for how we play. I mean, we have had some good games in this formation, but I think by and large our best games have been with a 3-5-2. And that's what I've seen. So maybe he's got to think about how he fits that. Maybe he puts Lucas or Kulu a bit more central with Son and Kane up front. But then again, if you do that, you're kind of putting even more pressure on the wing-backs in a way, because at least when you're 3-4-3, you have Son and Lucas a bit wide for you, even though they're kind of tucked in. They're on those sides for you if you need them. But if in the 3-5-2, it's kind of you're on your own out there in a way. You have to dominate those wide areas properly. So if people are complaining about the fullbacks, I mean, whether that's the best formation. I mean, we've seen good performances, but I don't know what he thinks. Maybe we need to go back to a 4 at the back. I mean, maybe that's also something that Conte has to consider, because at the moment we're playing with the 3, and it's making us a bit predictable on the ball. And it's making us quite easy to play against. We don't have enough numbers when we go forward, and unless we're playing on a counter-attack, it's very difficult for us to really hurt the opposition. And then once we move to a 4, all of a sudden we had options. We looked a lot more creative. So maybe that's something he has to consider as well. So definitely he has to take blame, but like, he can't. What can he do about players just standing and watching? You know what I mean? And that kind of stuff. What can he do about Lloris not catching a simple shot and just palming it straight to Jimenez? What can he do about that? So there's not much. And I think, to be fair to him, I think he did. He changed it after 25 minutes. A lot of managers wouldn't do that. Would just wait till half time and see. He changed it very early. He saw it wasn't working, and he tried his best to influence the game as early as possible to get back in it. And I think he changed it positively, and the game did change positively in our favour. We just, unfortunately, the damage was already done.
Yeah, so you need to get it, especially against a team like Wolves, you need to get it right from the offset, because
I mean, every game you have to get it right from the offset.
Yeah, yes, but against Wolves especially, because of how good they are in defence.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like we keep saying, after them going 2-0 up, the game was done. The game was done, and there was not much Conte could have done to swing that game in our favour, as opposed to if you go 2-0 down early to a team like, you know, a Norwich or a Brentford or someone like that, you can turn that game around. But against Wolves yesterday, it was detrimental. It really was detrimental. And, you know, he keeps not bemoaning, but calling for patience in the fan base. But this fan base have been patient for so many years now. It's hard to keep this patience.
Yeah, but he's only been there a few months.
I know he's only been there a few months, but it's like every time a new manager comes in, they all call for patience, and it's just like
that's
tiring.
how it is.
It's just tiring.
There's no such thing as a miracle worker. Well, like there's no such thing as a manager who's just going to come in and sort the problems immediately. It's always going to be. That's why it's so frustrating that we're in this position, because we had a really good basis. We had a real settled squad. We were in a position where we didn't need patience, like when we had Pochettino. We just needed to do the right things, like at the right time. We didn't do that. We let it go stale. All the stuff happened, and then Mourinho comes in. That wasn't kind of he comes in with his like win now mentality. And then Nuno comes in. We were sold a project. Oh, this, you know, we can think of the future, young player. We bought a bunch of young players in the summer, all that kind of stuff. Now that's gone to the wayside, and now Conte's in. So we do need patience. That's just reality. If Conte is going to do his work, then we need to be a bit patient with him. Otherwise, we're like, even at Inter Milan, it wasn't just flower and rainbows immediately.
It took about a year for him to proper get to grips with him at Inter.
Yeah, I mean, they got top four, but they weren't like. I remember there were also very odd defeats they were having in his first year, and there were times where you're thinking, is it even working out? Like, what's going on? And then he got it right. Like, you just need to give him a bit of time. At Chelsea, even when he first went there, like, he had an awful start. It was terrible. I remember it was September time. There was even rumours of him getting sacked. I remember until he changed the formation and he turned it around. Like at Tottenham now, he had a very good start. It's now things are starting to go a bit. There were 3 defeats in a row. Things are unravelling in terms of that. But be a bit patient and just allow him time to figure things out, because I don't know, maybe he's reacting to the booing and stuff probably, but I don't think it's booing at him. I think it's more booing at the hierarchy, I'm assuming, when fans are booing. For me, yesterday wasn't the type of performance where you boo. That's just my opinion, but maybe that's what he's referring to, though.
I think that definitely at the end of the first half, the fans had a right to boo yesterday, because that first half was nowhere near good enough. What you were talking about in the first 20 minutes, 79, what was the percentage? 78, 79?
Yeah, 78%.
Away to Wolves. It's just clearly not good enough. Nowhere near good enough. Yes, when Conte made the changes and we got to grips with the game, yeah, we got better. But again, we still never troubled their goalkeeper enough. And I personally didn't boo at halftime or at full time yesterday. I was way too dejected at full time to even think about booing. But I think the fans had a right yesterday, especially at halftime, to boo.
Maybe at halftime, I can understand that. But I think for me, you're booing a team when you're not. Like, this is how I always thought about it. You're booing a team not because they're not good enough. You're booing a team because you don't see any effort on the pitch. You think they're not trying, and then you think you think that they're putting in a performance where they don't give a crap. And that's not what I saw yesterday. So that's when I would boo a team. Like, if I would consider booing a team if I didn't see any effort. So for me, that's not what I saw. But maybe people have different barometers when they boo and when they don't. That's just reality for me.
Yeah, but anyway, also Antonio Conte, for the first time since his Atalanta days, loses 3 games on the trot in the league. Could potentially make it 4 this weekend. I'm not sure what the stat is when he's lost 4 in a row.
Probably never.
But yeah, it's not looking good right now in terms of the top 4 race. But things can change very quickly, can't they?
Look, as I've said, a couple of wins, you're up there, a couple of losses. It's so tight in the race for top 4. As I said, we're 8th, right, at the moment. And 4th place, we're only 5 points away from 4th place with 3 games in hand. Everyone is... Because these games in hand, it kind of just... it's hard to get a gauge on all of it, isn't it? On exactly where everyone is until everyone's level on games. And you can kind of get a proper barometer as to how easy or hard it is to get top 4. But as I say, losing 2 games at home to Southampton and Wolves is going to make it nearly impossible to go get that top 4 if that continues. But as long as, we could be 4 points behind with 5 games to go and still be in it. You know what I mean? So to be 5 points behind with 18 games, to be 5 points behind with 17 games to go doesn't put you out of it, but if the problem is you're now playing catch up, and any bad result, any defeat now is doubly as bad as it was before, because if any other points, and you're all of a sudden you could be 7, 8, 9 points behind very quickly. So we got to make sure we stop the bleeding. But with City coming up next, it's hard to see that happening anytime soon.
We've got all the big boys left to go to away, apart from Chelsea. We've got to go to Man United. We've got to go to Man City. We've got to go to Liverpool. We've got to go to all these big clubs from now to the end of the season. And we put ourselves in such a good position before this week. So many games in hand, and you look at this week coming up, being like, you know what, we got Southampton and Wolves in at home. We need to get 6 points on these games, and then we can see what happens in the away games, because we haven't been performing good away from home all season, apart from a few specific games. So we really looked at these 2 games to be like, look, we need to win these games if we're going to kick on.
Yeah, it could potentially be fatal, to be honest, losing these 2 games. It could potentially be fatal. It depends if we can. gets like if we get 7 points out of the next 3 away games, which is very unlikely, but if we do it, then all of a sudden we're back in the conversation. But
if we get 6?
6 will probably just hang in there, yeah. I'd say 6 will probably hang in there.
Let's be honest, you've got to take the Man City game as a loss, right?
Any less than that, though, any less than 6, and you could pretty much be saying bye-bye.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. But look, that is our match review from the game yesterday. I want to know your thoughts in the comment section.